Friday, September 26, 2025 was International Day of Total Elimination of Nuclear Weapons. And to mark that, Ghana's Foreign Minister, Sam Okudzeto Ablakwa, presented Ghana's ratified declaration that it will never be a nuclear state. So, Ghana in 1970 already made the declaration that it will never be a nuclear state. So, by ratifying the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, all Parliament did was reiterate the 55-year held conviction of the government of Ghana and the people of Ghana that we will never be a nuclear state. And you are wondering, Ghana doesn't have nuclear weapons, or we don't plan to have nuclear weapons. So why do we need to make a declaration to that effect? And to that, I would say, you don't have to be a nuclear state to be a partaker in nuclear atrocities. I'll explain that in Ghana's history with declarations like this in a few minutes. My name is Tony. I'm a Ghanaian writer based in the US, and on this platform, I offer my thoughts on Ghana's foreign policy and international trade. So, if intellectual conversations is something you are interested in, subscribe to this channel. All right, let's go on. So, if you're watching this channel, I believe that you are somebody who is interested in world politics. And if you are interested in world politics, I believe that you know about World War II. And if you know about World War II, I believe that you know about the atrocities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And if you know about the atrocities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, you know that it was when the US dropped the nuclear weapons that made Japan surrender to end formally World War II. And what you don't know is, while World War II ended on September 2nd, 1945, the atrocities around World War II did not end that day. So, the US, for example, took control of an island in Australia, the continent, called Marshall Islands. And Marshall Island at this point was a not so hugely populated island. It was a sparsely populated island, but people still lived there anyway. And it was under Japanese occupation until the US took over. So in 1946, the US thought that, yes, we destroyed Japan with our nuclear weapons, or we destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki with our nuclear weapons, but we don't know the effect of nuclear weapons on our soldiers, our warship, and other people, right? So the US thought that it was smart to test the effects of the nuclear weapons on soldiers and other people, right? So what did they do? They did just that. And how did they do this? They moved around people who lived on some of the islands in the Marshall Island, which are called the Bikini Atolls. And the word bikini sounds familiar. Let me tell you why the word bikini sounds familiar. Then we go on. So there was a French fashion designer who designed what we now know as the bikini clothing that women wear. You know, the drawers and brassiere. And when he designed the bikini, he decided to name it the bikini. You know why he decided to name it the bikini? Because according to him, the women wearing bikini is going to be the bomb. Why did he say the bikini was going to be the bomb? Yeah, it's because In testing out nuclear weapons, the US dropped nuclear bombs in Bikini Atolls in the Marshall Islands, just testing weapons. And to date, the effects of the nuclear testing that happened in the Marshall Islands are still present with us today. There are some US soldiers who still have effects from the nuclear weapons. There are some Marshallese who still have effects from the nuclear weapons. Those lands still have effects from the nuclear weapon. So there was human life and environmental effect of US testing nuclear weapons in Bikini Atolls. So even though something like the Hiroshima bombings, you can say it was a war incident. And war is war. Now we have rules on war, so that is different. But this was a peacetime testing that still live with us today. So around that time, a lot of countries in the world were like, you know what? This is bad. We shouldn't do this anymore. Nuclear weapons are way too dangerous for us to be playing around with them. And guess what? More countries in the world got nuclear weapons. Russia tested their nuclear weapons in 1949. And countries like Ukraine, until later on, also had nuclear weapons. And there was a nuclear disaster in Ukraine, effect of which still live with us today. There was countries like China also got nuclear weapons. India and Pakistan, two countries who hate each other, also have nuclear weapons. In 2006, 2007, North Korea also got nuclear weapons. South Africa had nuclear weapons until 1989, and then they got rid of them. So, to date, when Hiroshima happened, only one country was confirmed to have nuclear weapon. As it stands today, about 8 or 9 countries are confirmed to have nuclear weapons, which means that the story has gotten worse. I say 8 or 9 because Israel is not a confirmed nuclear country. However, in the 1980s, an Israeli scientist called Mordecai Vanunu told the British press that Israel had nuclear weapons, and he got arrested, went to jail. A long story. But my point is, we went to the disaster of Hiroshima, the even worse disaster of Bikini Atolls, to more countries trying to be nuclear countries. And of course, the Cold War was the beginning of all this, US and Russia going at each other, which is why the US and Russia own 90% of nuclear stockpiles in the world. Yes, India, Pakistan, China, North Korea, all of them have about just 10% of the nuclear weapons stockpiles in the world, right? Which is why the rest of the world have been declaring that we need to get rid of nuclear weapons. We know Iran was working on enrichment, and what happened earlier this year, some are saying it destroyed their enrichment, some are saying it did not. You will never know fully. But my point is, nuclear weapons have been declared for 80 years to be extremely dangerous, and it looks like more and more countries are getting it, which is why we need a declaration that we don't have to have nuclear weapons. And actually, Ghana's declaration to be a nuclear-free state is not new. In 1962, the then president of Ghana, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, held a conference in Accra, Ghana, called The World Against the Bomb. Yes, it was called The World Against the Bomb. The bomb, which means that it was specifically about a particular bomb. And he had nuclear scientists from about 45 countries in the world to meet here. I believe there were about 150 nuclear scientists meeting in Ghana in 1962 to talk about the dangers of nuclear weapons. I think there was a US congressman who even attended, and the US congressman said, let's not even talk about just nuclear weapon. Let's call this conference the World Against War, because there are either lethal weapons in the world. But then Nkrumah was like, you know what, let's start with the bomb and then we get to other weapons, right? And I believe that was a good call on Nkrumah's part. And the reason why Nkrumah held this conference was because Ghana has two things that Nkrumah saw as our big national visions when he was president. Number one, Nkrumah wanted Ghana to be a science leader in the world. And two, Nkrumah wanted Ghana to be a powerful voice in the non-aligned movement. So our non-aligned movement position is we are against nuclear weapons, but our scientific position is we are against nuclear weapons for scientific reasons. You understand how those two visions played out? So the conference happened, declarations were made at the conference, very little came out of it. But in 1970, Ghana acceded the Non-Proliferation Treaty. So Ghana declared in 1970 that we are never going to be a nuclear state, but we are only going to use nuclear energy for peace purposes. So this was after, I think, 5 years after the Ghana Atomic Energy Commission was founded. And so Ghana uses atomic energy or nuclear energy for peace purposes, for medical purposes. The Ghana Atomic Energy does a lot of good work. Very legal, non-nuclear weapons related work. You understand? So anytime people talk about Ghana Atomic Energy Commission, they think about, are we doing nuclear weapons in Ghana? No. In 1970, Ghana decided we are not going to do nuclear weapons in Ghana, and we've held to that belief till date. So Ghana Atomic Energy only uses nuclear energy for peace purposes. Nuclear energy have a lot of uses, but I know Ghana Atomic Energy uses mostly for medical purposes. Now I don't know how far they've gotten to. They're trying to use nuclear energy to generate electricity in Ghana. I have to reach out to some people I know working on that, and maybe in future I'll come back to you with the answer. And in 1996, Ghana joined 154 countries to sign a comprehensive nuclear test ban treaty, banning all form of nuclear explosions. This is very important. This was saying that apart from dropping nuclear weapons on people during wartime, peacetime testing of nuclear weapons is also banned. This was Ghana's declaration in 1996. We joined 154 countries in the world to, do that declaration. And we know that North Korea have tested nuclear weapons since then. So there is at least one country in the world who is not abiding by this declaration that was held in 1996. In the same 96, the continent of Africa signed what is called the Pelindaba Treaty to declare Africa a nuclear-free zone. So no country in Africa has nuclear weapons. South Africa had it before 1989, but they got rid of it before apartheid ended. But there are some experts who are saying that even though Africa doesn't have nuclear weapons, because of the uranium and other, for want of a better word, ingredients used in nuclear weapons manufacturing, Africa actually is not nuclear free because we contribute raw material to nuclear weapons manufacturing. I don't have a strong position on that. It makes sense, but let me know. Do you think that because the African countries who manufacture raw materials used in making nuclear weapon, Africa is not nuclear free? Let me know what you think about that. So from 2017, actually, the UN they passed the Treaty on Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, which came into effect in 2001. And this is important. 2007, the president of the US was President Trump. And President Trump is a big advocate of a no-nuclear world. President Trump he has said it, that he wants a world where nobody has nuclear weapons. And he has said that that is actually his reason for wanting to remain friends with Russia. Because Russia and the US together have 90% of the nuclear weapons in the world. So if Russia and the US come together and declare that they want to get rid of nuclear weapons, every other country is likely to join them, right? So President Trump in 2017, when he was president, joined UN to make this declaration, and it was accepted in 2021 into effect. And today, Ghana became, I think, the 70th or 71st country in the world to finally ratify this treaty. There are still countries in the world who haven't ratified this treaty. So, while President Trump was an advocate or is an advocate for ending nuclear weapon possession in the world, the US is yet to accept this ratification. The Russia is yet to accept this ratification, because if the US and Russia accept this ratification, it means they have to get rid of their nuclear weapons. I don't know if they will ever do that, but this is where we are now. Countries who don't have nuclear weapons want to feel safe. And we can't feel safe if there are countries in the world who have nuclear weapons. So, Ghana, what we are doing is, in 1962, Nkrumah wanted the world to have a world without the bomb. Almost 80 years or 70 years later, we still have nuclear weapons in the world. That is not a good sign. We are not moving forward. We are moving backwards. So what Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa did was to reiterate Ghana's position that we want to move the world forward. Wars are so old school. Wars are so 20th century. In the 21st century, let's find something new to do. AI, aliens, something else, you know? And this is the position of the government of Ghana. And so I personally, as a Ghanaian, I support the position of the government of Ghana, and I believe every Ghanaian should be an advocate for a nuclear-free world like Dr. Kwame Nkrumah wanted us to be. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know your thoughts on anything I've said in this video. And if you disagree with anything I've said, I would really, really like to hear your disagreement. I think everybody's opinion matters, even if not to me. I'm kidding. So subscribe to this channel if you like intellectual conversations or my perspective on issues around national foreign policy and international trade. Talk to you later.